This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Sydney, this is such a fun opportunity for me because, well, you are the key assistant, right?
One of three, yeah.
Key assistant location managers for the Nashville series, which has just hit ABC and the whole country by storm. And so what's it like doing a network TV series?
It's pretty intense. I mean, we work Monday through Friday, but our days can be really long and can be any time of day or night. For example, last week we were filming at the Opry, and because there was a show the night before, we couldn't take possession of the space until midnight, so we actually started work at 2 a.m. I went to work at 2 a.m. and was there till about noon until I traded off with somebody else. But having your alarm go off at 12:30 is a little bit rough.
Yeah, that would be tough. To get up to go to work at 12:30?
Yeah.
A.M.
A.M., exactly.
Yeah. So people may think that film and network television work is really glamorous and you just have the life, but it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. What I do is location. So I help find the places that fit the storyline for the script, and for the Opry, obviously for the show, that's going to be scripted as itself. But sometimes we need a house or a restaurant, a diner. I help find those places, and then I help do the logistics to get the company into the space, like where are we going to park, where are we going to eat, where are we going to be. Most places we go, without exception, unless they've seen us before, are surprised that it takes well over 100 people to shoot an episode. And that's what's on the shooting crew. There's a whole construction department and folks at the office that are an exception to that number. So when we're talking about parking, I'm looking for a place to park 100 to 120 vehicles, plus 6 tractor trailers, multiple actor trailers, all of the trucks that pull the actor trailers, smaller 5 and 10-ton trucks, passenger vans to move the crew around. And usually, especially with the growth and development in Nashville right now, parking is never really close to where we're filming.
Right.
So we're going to be filming on Music Row later this week. We have to park at Greer Stadium because that's the closest parking lot that we can get to, and that's a couple miles away, a mile and a half away, I believe. So those are the kinds of things. I'm constantly thinking about the geography of Nashville all day, every day, just about.
And we're actually shooting on location in Nashville. We're shooting at the Acme
Feed and Seed, yes.
Yes, Feed and Seed. And this is a location that you have had an after party in, right?
We did. We did our season 3 wrap party was here at Acme Feed and Seed. It is just opened, I believe, about a year ago, maybe not quite a year ago. And for those folks who are familiar with Nashville, there used to be the Purina Feed store and warehouse right down on the river, and this building has been here since the days of river merchandise, mercantile, and stuff like that. So the folks that redeveloped the restaurant, and I know some of the folks involved, particularly the restaurant side, a friend of mine, Tom Morales, he helped develop this restaurant. And they were really wanting to maintain the historical feel of the building and the historical aspect of it and make a new music venue, food restaurant here right down by the river. It's a great view of the stadium, great view of the Ascend Amphitheater, which is just a block or so away. But I did a small project this summer when I was on hiatus from Nashville for a show that's going to be distributed through Netflix with the comedian Aziz Ansari. And they did some scenes here, both outside on the street and up on the rooftop. There is a rooftop here with a pretty great view. So, yeah, so that was fun. So I actually have used this as a filming location. And the folks here are great and very accommodating, so it was nice that they could open the doors for us this afternoon.
As a location manager, do you sometimes just do you see a house that you go, wow, that'd be a great location to shoot from? And do you actually go, hello, can we use your house?
I do. does engender a certain type of self-confidence to be able to do what we call cold scouting. And sometimes it's because you're looking for a particular type of house, and you just drive around looking for that kind of house. Sometimes it's just, and this happens a lot on the show, where we won't be someplace all day long, so we need something else to make our production day. And a production day is typically 12 hours of filming.
Okay.
So for 12 hours of filming, we would need like 2 or 3 other locations if it's a house, and it needs to be fairly close to the same base camp, say.
Right.
So I'm going to drive around looking for a bar or a house or whatever, or I need a 2-story house, or I need a split-level ranch house, and you literally just go around, knock on the doors. If nobody answers, leave a letter on the door. And I never cease to be amazed that people, I must have a very trustworthy face, because people will let me come in their house and take pictures, you know, as a stranger. But that happens, and sometimes I can leave a letter, and a year later someone will call me and say, hey, I've just been meaning to get in touch with you, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested in coming to take pictures of our house, I'd love for you to come out here. And that's what I do. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty interesting. I refer to my job as sort of like having a golden passport. I can get access to the strangest of places. I have been on more rooftops in Nashville than you can imagine, and that includes having to climb up ladders, open hatches, all over town. Yeah. Usually that's not applicable, but people will ask, well, what's up there? And it's my job to go find out.
Scout. You're going to go scout.
I'm going to go scout, exactly.
How does TV work differ from film? Because you have quite an illustrious film career that you've worked on. I'm going to name just a few. Your first film was Fargo.
Yeah, it's a pretty good place to start.
That's a pretty good place to start, is right. You've worked on The Green Mile, The Big Lebowski, The Rainmaker, with Francis Ford Coppola, who was the director.
Yeah.
October Sky, Hannah Montana, and Water for Elephants, not too long ago.
Correct.
So film is one kind of medium, but television would have, especially network television, would have to have a whole different feel.
It's the same but different. I guess it would be sort of like driving a sports car versus driving a pickup truck, maybe not in terms of the quality, but they're both vehicles, but one very different for a different purpose than the other. When I started in film, the world of television has changed a lot when I started doing film and television production. Film tends to be they'll take a lot longer to put together what they want. They will take longer to set up the lighting to get everything just right. They spend a lot more money on it. So where we might film 4 to 5 pages a day of script in a film, in a TV show, it's not uncommon to do 10 or 12. Usually on Nashville, which is a show with a bigger budget, we do around 8 to 9 as an average for us. And that sometimes depends on whether we've got live performance singing going on. That changes the page weight significantly.
Right.
So the pace of film, you have 2 to 3 months of prep, and then you have 2 to 3 months of filming. On TV, we are literally prepping, filming, and wrapping all at the same time, consecutively, week in and week out. So it is an extremely rigorous schedule as far as that goes. People, and this is really common when I come home to Cookville, people ask me something about what's going on in the show. If I have even seen part of the show that's airing, I'm so thinking about what I'm scouting for that I'm usually not even aware of what's actually on air, because that can be 6-8 weeks behind what we're filming, if not more. So it's a real time gap from when we finish filming it to when it's actually shown on screen, and so it's really hard for me to keep up with storylines sometimes when people ask me about that.
Right. So you grew up in Cookville.
I did.
And you've made this a career choice. How did that happen? Is this what you studied?
It sort of is. I grew up in Cookville. I would say that my love of entertainment media started with children's theater. I was very active in Cookville's children's theater growing up, and that really got me into sort of drama and narrative drama. when I went to college, I studied theater set design, and that was at the University of Minnesota. That's where I went to school, and immediately after school got into film work. And I'd always been very passionate about film craft, and even though I didn't technically study it, so the translation from doing a theatrical set to doing a film set was pretty natural for me. There are definite differences, but then over time I moved from building or decorating sets to finding the sets ready-made, which is what I do. And that's not an uncommon job shift in my industry for people doing art department to go into doing locations work. So that's how I ended up doing locations at this time.
So what do you love about working in a creative field then? What is that?
One of the things I love most about my job is that all the different people I get to meet. And that doesn't necessarily, that's not exactly answering your question, I guess, but I really enjoy all the different places that I get to go. I was in Gallatin last night to talk to the city council. They actually have their own film permit process, and if you're going to be on public property, you have to get permission from the city council. So I went up there last night. We filmed in Gallatin before, and I just wanted to let them know that we were coming back and that give them a heads up. And ended up having this conversation with there was also a group of ministers there for some prayer function or church function they're going to have. They also are going to be closing a street, so we were there for kind of the same reason. Had this great conversation about Black churches in Nashville and the African American community, and it was just a lovely conversation. And you never know I never know when I'm going to have those conversations. Or we're going to be filming in a bar in North Nashville next week, and the daughter owns it, but the mother helps run it. She's a graduate of Tennessee Tech. She went to Tech, studied with Dr. Wattenbarger, played clarinet and saxophone, and was there on a music scholarship, and then worked for the city and Fleet Guard, and then ended up moving back to Nashville area because of older relatives, and now is in the mid. And it was like worlds colliding. It's a small world after all moment, because we had this conversation. She was asking me about restaurants that used to be there and what was still around.
Fun.
Yeah, and I said, you know, it was really great, and you never know when you're going to come across something like that.
So it's interesting because you're talking about just normal, everyday people.
Right.
And people who love and watch the Nashville series would be just starstruck, I'm sure, to know that you're in the presence every day of these incredible actors who are, and on film work too.
Yeah.
What's that like? Do you get starstruck?
Not really, not anymore. I mean, sometimes you see somebody for the first time and it's a face that you know so well. It's just a little, wow, oh, there they are. And, but they're people just like everybody else. We're all there to do a job, and you really get that sensibility. The best projects I've ever worked on are the ones where the actors really are as in tune to the collaborative effort as anybody else. And one of my favorite people like that was Frances McDormand on Fargo. She was just a really generous person, really understood the impact that role would have for her career. I mean, she did end up winning an Oscar for it, but she was the first person to help out on set, just moving equipment around or something. You know, she was just always talking to folks, a real morale booster. Didn't take it for granted, and that's such a privilege when you're around folks like that.
Right.
That's, I guess, probably what I noticed more than the fact that somebody might be really famous or not.
Yeah.
It's when they haven't lost their human touch, and that's really, really special. Another person that I'm sure, I mean, you've had the privilege of working with is Dolly Parton.
Yes.
She's one of the most accessible people I've had the privilege of working with. Yeah. And she's a real inspiration for me, too, as a Tennessean, and what she's done for the state.
Yeah.
Economically, she understands entertament as a economic driver.
Right.
And she also is very passionate about education and literacy.
Yes.
And she gives back as much as she gets, and she knows that the people who buy her records and pay for tickets to her shows or go to Dollywood are the ones that make it happen for her, and she gives back, which is really cool.
That is cool. And you don't always find that, do you? I mean, you just don't.
She has a huge perspective in terms of that. She's, I think, always been a very big picture person. I mean, she understood that the songwriting and having publishing rights was how she would take care of herself, so she stuck to her guns, and that's how she really was able to establish herself. It wasn't just as a performer, though that might be how most people think of her. It's her business acumen is extremely sharp.
You know, that is true that she is a very smart business person, and you have to be that.
You have to be. Well, as somebody said to me today when I told them what I was getting ready to go do, they said, well, just remember, the word business is a lot bigger than the word show.
Boy, that's the truth. That is the
and,
truth.
You
It's
know,
a business.
It is. And one of the other things that I, speaking of my Golden Passport, I had the privilege of scouting the just newly opened Mike Curb School for Entertainment and Music Business at Belmont. They have a whole new building, and the facility there is incredible. They're even setting up a motion capture studio. They're going to, so they can do motion capture programming and editing. They're going to filmmaking. They have a green screen studio. They have it's an amazing equipment, but that's in the music business school, and it's all about the business of making entertainment media. And actually, to jump back to a question that you asked me earlier, the difference in TV as it's evolved since I first got in this business in the past 20 years, filmed media is really changing in how it's distributed.
Right.
So it's not so much theatrically released films anymore as much as it is television. It's even distributed digitally online, streamed. I know PBS is familiar with the streaming. And the quality of that people put into their television shows now is film caliber, and a lot of people I know would really enjoy working on these. They tend to be shorter number of episodes, but a higher quality of film. So whether you think of it as being True Detective or something like Downton Abbey, it's going to be a 7 or 8 episode season, but those 7 and 8 episodes are film quality. And and it's filmed digitally, so the way that it's distributed digitally, that's where, in my mind, filmed entertainment media is going.
Yes.
Going to see a film in a theater is a boutique experience, or going to become that, except for some big blockbuster 3D or action-packed movie. But for good entertainment, it's going to be accessible at someone's home by streaming.
As they say in PBS land, content is king. So that's basically what you're saying. It doesn't matter where you put the content or how it's delivered to the people. In fact, you need to be able to deliver it multiple platforms.
You do.
Anymore, but it's the quality of the content that makes the difference.
It does, and whereas I think television might not have really put a lot of effort into developing those kinds of storylines, they certainly do now.
Yeah.
And so you can have epic programs like Game of Thrones, where it really is all about the content and the story.
Now, you have been in the business, as you said, 20 years, and
shockingly, yes.
And you know, there's some young girls out there watching right now, or maybe their parents are watching, and they'll say, hey, watch this. What was it like as a young woman being in this kind of an industry? It's probably not as strong a female industry.
No,
right?
it's not. I mean, I think one of the misconceptions people might have about the film industry is that it's going to be really wide open and liberal, and on some levels it is, but on some levels it's very traditional in how it's run, and so it's very hierarchical, and the power is controlled with a few people, and it's very male dominated, and so it's taken a lot to break that ceiling, but it's amazing within my lifetime to see women directors, and not just one rare woman director, but multiple women directors. I can say that, and I know that this has a lot to do with one of the creators of my show, Nashville, not my show, but the show that I work on, Callie Corey, and they just released numbers about the best shows to work on, or the best shows that have diversity in their directing and producing staff and writing, and the worst. And Nashville is fairly close to the top, with about 55% female director diversity involvement, and that's a great number. There's a number of shows that have 0, and those are shows that are extremely popular shows. So, yeah, and so that was a nice affirmation to see that. Whereas when I started, when I was on Fargo, there were days when Frances, myself, the wardrobe, 2 wardrobe women, one hair lady. We were the only women on set in a crew of 50 to 60 people. Wow. So when you're talking about being on a show where there's a real gender imbalance, and that was a great, very friendly, kind crew, but it can be a little daunting. When I worked on The Last Castle, which was filmed here at Tennessee at the old prison, going to work every day where there were probably 400 or 500 men and maybe 25 women. That's a real gender imbalance, and it's pretty intense. It can be a little uncomfortable sometimes.
But young girls shouldn't give up the dream of
definitely
doing this.
not. I would say somebody like, and you know, whether it's Callie or Dolly Parton, both of them would be the same way. Like, if you've got a story to tell, pursue your dreams, get out there, do it. Don't let anybody tell you can't. There's so many women directors out there right now telling stories. I would love to see there be more female cinematographers. That's still a really hard to break through in that field. But I have worked with a female DP on Hustle and Flow, and she was one of the first women into the American Society of Cinematographers, the ASC. So if you see movie credits and you see ASC at the end of a name, that's what that stands for. And she was one of the first women in, but that was in, I worked on Hustle and Flow in 2004, 2005. So when you talk about there only being a handful of women in the 2000s in that field, in that guild, that's tells you something.
So we need more.
We need more. We need more. So for those young women who are out there watching, I say go to it. Let's get it started. Let's keep going.
Do you want to make a film? Do you want to direct, or do you have any?
No, that's not really my strong suit. I'd say if anything, one day maybe I'll sit down and write, but I don't see myself being a director. I'm a little too introverted, I think, for that to work really well. One of the biggest jobs of a director is to get everybody on board with a collective vision. And though, for example, the Coen brothers are very quiet people, I know what kind of meticulous detail and work they put into having their work prepared so that when it's time to start working, the film is completely made in their mind. It's completely storyboarded, and it's just the easiest thing to work on because it's all very well communicated. So they communicate up front that way. Whereas if you have to do it verbally or build enthusiasm, it takes a little bit, it's a little harder.
In the few minutes we have left, I know that I know you have a very strong family, and they've been very, I'm sure, encouraging and supportive of your work in this industry. So you want to share a little bit about that? About your family?
About my family, sure. Well, I grew up in Cookeville. I was actually born in Memphis. My mom's family from down there. My father grew up on a dairy farm outside of Lewisburg, Tennessee. And my parents both had a very strong commitment to giving back to people where they came from. So in my father's circumstances, for him, that was education. He went to the University of Tennessee. He was able to go to the University of Tennessee. Got his graduate degree, first degree at UT, also went away to Illinois, but he came back to teach because he wanted to give back to the state that had given him an education. And that's how he ended up in Cookeville. It was at Tennessee Tech. And so I think I also have that same sort of interest in giving back community-wise, and that's why I've always maintained strong ties to Cookeville myself. My mom still lives there. She also went to UT, but she is a social worker, and so her interest in social and public issues is very strong. I'd say I'm very well imprinted with both of those. That's probably what helps me get into people's homes to take pictures of all their belongings, actually. Is that I can communicate across all social spectrums and stuff like that. And so, yeah, my parents also were really good into the belief of education, that was a way to achieve your dreams, but also to have dreams in the first place. So. I would say that that's been a big part of it for me.
And your sister? And you've got...
My sister and new twins, yes. My sister lives in Boston, and my brother-in-law is a research scientist at MIT, and my sister is an attorney in Boston, so they've both done very well for themselves. My brother-in-law is from Brazil, and my sister and brother-in-law just had 2 twin, baby boy and girl, and they're getting ready. We're just beginning our plan to go to Christmas to be with his family, a whole family all together. And I would say that that's also something for Eduardo and his family. In Brazilian culture, family is extremely important, so those values are very well mirrored. So we're looking forward to going down there to be with them and share these new babies, the new addition to the family. It's going to be awesome.
That is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So Sydney, we're just about out of time. We've got less than a minute, but is there anything you want to share? Any last thought or sense of, you know?
Well, one thing I was, as far as my job, because I know you've asked me for many years now to talk about my work. Well, now that I've been working on Nashville into our 4th season, it's really interesting and exciting to see how Middle Tennessee and the Upper Cumberland and the interest that this show has helped create. I think there was already a wave going in that direction, but and it's just something to be really proud of, to share what's so great about this area with the world, and that's a big part of what I do. And it is the whole world.
It is.
I get people from Germany and Australia. What are you doing? It's the show Nashville. Oh, really? Yeah. When just start talking to me about whatever it is that they do.
They love it.
Yeah, they do.
They love it.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you, my friend. This has been a joy, and we're so proud of you.
Yeah,
we're just so proud of you.
Glad to be here.
Thanks.
Okay.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.